أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله أوله بلا أول كان قبله وآخره بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وأجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم ومناقبهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Second night of the month of Muharram, and the scene have been set by the recitation of the poetry by our dear brothers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the pursa, which points in the direction of the arrival of Imam Husayn in Karbala on the 2nd. Second, when they arrived, as according to certain narratives, and these poetries, the Marsiya, are a very important part of our Azadari, and we should teach our children to and equip them the same way as we teach them and we bring them to majalis, and the same way as we teach them to recite salat, prayer, and to fast, that they should also show their interest towards understanding these poetry, these marsiyas which are recited. Because these marsiyas are based on narratives that have been handed down to us by the Imams, especially the marsiyas of Miranis, those marsiyas of those traditional scholars, ulama, poets, ash'ar, that they have written, is based on narratives, is based on hadith. Yes, some of the new ones that we find tend to have the emotional and sentiment element in it, a lot of imagination in it, but the old ones, the traditional ones of Miranis, those are based on narratives, on hadith. For example, today in one of the marsiyas it was recited that Imam Husayn changed 7 horses. When he reached Karbala, the horse wasn't moving forward. So he brought another ride, another ride. Still the horse wasn't moving forward. So he asked, "What's this place?" They said, "This is Amura." It was known to be one of the names of Karbala. They says, "Is there any other name?" He says, "This is Taf." Any other name? Shatt Furat. They started giving different names. And finally they said, "It is Karbala." Then Imam Husayn said, "A'udhu min karb wa bala." He said, "A'udhu min karb wa bala." And this have 2 meanings. One is a basic meaning which we will say that whenever there's a pain, you say it's very painful. It's a natural reaction. When we hear something, when we are in pain, we say But this is Husayn who is saying This is Husayn who is saying What is this which Husayn is saying? When we look at the narration of Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam, See, in order to understand the kalam of Masumin, we have to put the kalam of Masumin to interpret next to it. Allama Tabatabai did tafsir of Quran. Very famous tafsir. It's not a tafsirul Mizan. It's 20 volumes. It's very powerful tafsir. Allama Tabatabai was a great exegist, a great person who interpreted the Quran. Apart from being a great scholar, his tafsir is very famous. And in this tafsir, he has used the methodology. There are different methodology of doing tafsir. Sometimes you do tafsir of the verses of the Quran based on the hadith of Masumin of Rasulullah. Sometimes you do the tafsir of the Quran by using science. Like for example, there's a verse in the Quran, Allah says everything is created from water. Then you say, oh, scientists have said that the life came from water. This is what Allah is trying to say in the verse of the Quran. So there's an interpretation of that verse. So use science, use philosophy, use history, use that. Allah Ta'ala says, who can understand Quran? Allah have sent the Quran, so Allah should interpret the Quran. So He places the verses of the Quran next to each other to have a meaning. For example, in Surah Tawbah, it says that, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah, O people who have brought iman, have taqwa. And then it says, wa kunu ma'as sadiqeen, and also be with those who are sadiqeen. Now, who are sadiqeen? Then He put another verse of the Quran, the sadiqeen are those who are truthful. The sadiqeen are those who have always spoken the truth and nothing but the truth. They are the pure ones. Then He looks at the verse of Innama yuridullah liyudhiba ankum al-rijs. They are the truthful ones who are purified by Allah. So here the Quran is saying, Akunu ma'as sadiqeen means the Ahl Bayt. So Allah can explain what it really means. So on the same token, in the same fashion, if you want to understand the kalam of Masumin alayhi salam, who will interpret that? We have to put the kalam of Masumin next to it. So we find here that Imam says, and the sixth Imam visited a person who was ill, who was mariz, right? And he went and visited him. This mariz was saying, obviously he's in pain. He's saying, every person who's in pain, he will say, it's pain. Then Imam Sadiq said, he's not saying, he's saying Allah. This mariz wants release. And that relief and release is no one but Allah. That's the true meaning of right? Because relief and release is Allah. When Husayn is saying, it's not pain that way. It's Allah. Hadi Karbala. Oh Allah, you are our refuge. We come to you. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That is Karbala. The land of Karbala is very mysterious. Very mysterious. Because it was this very land where Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was returning from the Battle of Siffin. When you return from, Kufa, in order to go back, you have to stop by, you have to pass by to, when you return from Syria, you have to pass by through the land of Karbala to reach Kufa. Imam Husayn stopped. In one of the bayt, in the poetry we were reciting, I'm trying to link these things, right? Although this wasn't really the topic of today, but I'm just giving a premise so that we understand how important Marsiya and Nohas are. It's very important, right? So in one of the bayt, in one of the verses, it says Ali picked up the sand of Karbala. He smelled it. He says, this is the land where my son will be slaughtered. there's a smell, there's a sweet smell, there's a fragrance of the blood of Husayn. Right? Like as we said, the Waqia Karbala, the tragedy of Karbala, was already been informed. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight or maybe tomorrow. In the very dua of the 11th Imam, on the 3rd of Sha'ban, where the 11th Imam says that, today is the day of the birth of the one whose martyrdom, whose shahadat was announced even before his birth. Okay? So the reality, the truth of Karbala was already been informed. So Rasulullah knew, Bibi Fatima, Amirul Mu'minin, everybody, they knew about it. Imam Hassan Mushtaba, everybody, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. Where Imam Hassan, he has done the wasiyah in regards to Hazrat Qasim. So, Amirul Mu'minin said, this is the land, where they will be buried. There's another narration in regards to the importance of Karbala, because today is the arrival of Husayn in Karbala, what this land is. Very detailed hadith in the book of Furuq-e-Shahadat by Ayatollah Saadat Parvar. Saadat Parvar, he was also known by the name of Ayatollah Pahlawani. Saadat Parvar, and he was a student of Allama Tabatabai. Allama Tabatabai had a lot of students, and they were experts in different fields. The same way as the 6th Imam, had many students, and he had given some of the students, special attention in certain disciplines. Like for example, Jawadi Amali. When Allama was ill, he asked Jawadi to do the tafsir classes of his. And Jawadi has a very long 110 volume tafsir Quran by the name of Tasneem. It's a very beautiful tafsir of Jawadi. It took him maybe like 30 years to give the tafsir. So Saadat Parvar was somebody who was more inclined towards akhlaq and mysticism and irfan. And Allama would walk in the bagh, in the park near his house in Jubshur, in one of the areas in Qom. People who have gone there near Yakhchal Ghazi. Imam's house is there as well in Yakhchal. And Allama would walk with Saadat Parvar in the bagh, and Saadat Parvar would recite Hafiz, the poetry of Hafiz Shirazi, and Allama Tabatabai will interpret the Hafiz, what this poem means, because poetry has very deep meaning, right? Because poetry, is the highest level expression, and is the highest level of expression of the soul. We write essays. That's a way of expressing what we are writing. But more refined, more subtle, latif, more beautiful way to write is poetry. That is why ulama in the past, whenever they used to write books, they will write a poetry first. Falsafe, philosophy, for example, you have the book called Sharh Manzume. It's one of the philosophical texts by Ayatollah Sabzawari. Mullah Hadi Sabzawari, 19th century philosopher. This philosopher, in Namaz al-Shab, he will recite Joshan-e-Kabir. So Mullah Hadi Sabzawari has a book called Sharh Manzume. This book is used as a textbook in philosophy. Before Allama Tabatabai wrote Bidaya wa Nihaya. In the Hawza, they used to use this as a textbook. He wrote the whole philosophy in poetry. And then he will explain this poetry. What does this mean? So poetry is the first level of manifestation, of explanation, expression of that deep thought. It will come in a poetry. That's the reality of poetry. That's why it's very important. Okay, all of the we have Diwan of Amirul Mu'minin, Imam Amirul Mu'minin. That's why Quran, if you look at it, it's very poetic. It's not poetry, but it's very poetic, the style of it, because that's how it comes about, right? However, I don't want to get into music. Then music is higher than the expression of poetry. Obviously there's halal music, there's haram music, as there is white magic, there's black magic. Right? These are all ulum, sciences. These are disciplines. Music was part and parcel of the teachings of the Hausa. Ibn Sina have book on music. Sheikh Bahai, the one who is the architect of the Haram of Imam Raza alayhi salam, Sheikh Bahai, great scholar. He has a treatise on music, and he composed music. He composed music, and he said that I'm going to compose this music, and by the end of this, playing of the music, you all will go to sleep. The tune that he was, how he wrote the music. So he played it, everybody went to sleep. If I was there, I will take Sheikh Bahai, you don't need to compose music, I will give a speech, everybody will go to sleep. Because I speak very slowly, I'm so sorry. You should probably listen to my speeches on YouTube by 2.0. Very quickly you will not waste time. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So it is a discipline, it is a science. Allama Tabatabai's brother, his name was Muhammad Hassan Tabatabai, or Ilahiya Tabatabai, and he was an expert in ulum gharibe. Apart from falsafa and all that, he was ajube. Ayatollah Fatiminiya marhum, Fatiminiya, he says that some of the ajaib, some of the things that is about Muhammad Hassan Tabatabai, the scholars, they say, is mamnu to speak about. It's very strange, right? He had a father in his dream, of Allama Tabatabai father, and he says, Muhammad Husayn wrote whole tafsir, because Mizan we were talking about, and he did not mention anything, acknowledge me in the muqaddameh, a Fatiha for my father or something, Then Muhammad Hassan told to Muhammad Husayn, his brother, you didn't mention. So Allama said, this is nothing, I have done nothing. I haven't even reached the shore of the Quran. Quran is so deep, it's like an ocean. I haven't even reached the shore of it, right? And I regard this as to be of no value as such, that what he has done, not the Quran, right? That's why I didn't, feel like mentioning that it is something great and I'm asking to give a Fatiha. So Muhammad Hassan, what I was saying is that there's a book called Shining Sun, Mehr Taban, by Muhammad Husayn Tehrani. Muhammad Husayn Tehrani was also Shagird, student of Allama Tabatabai. There's a book by Muhammad Husayn Tehrani which is translated in English, which is actually spiritual wayfaring, Sayro Suluk, spiritual wayfaring. And that book is known as Kernel of the Kernel. It's translated in English. Actually, these are the lessons of Allama Tabatabai in Akhlaq, in Irfan. Lubbe-Lubab, Kitab Farsi, Lubbe-Lubab. It's translated in English as Kernel of the Kernel. You can find it in Amazon. Sayyid Hussain Nasr, Princeton, Hafazahullah, may Allah protect him. He has done muqaddama, an introduction to this text, to this book. And Ayat-Quli Qarai, the one who translated the Quran, phrase by phrase translation, he has initially done the translation of it in the Majalle Tawheed, in the book, in the magazine. So what I was saying, there's a book called by Muhammad Husayn Tehrani, Shining Sun. It's in English. ICAS Press, the Islamic College of London, have translated this. You can find this. This book, Mehr Taban, is an interview by Allama Tabatabai. And Nokat Tafsiri, points of tafsir, kalam, falsafe, some of his life experiences are in this book. Very beautiful book, Shining Sun. It's in English, a good translation, obviously. In this, they ask about his brother, Muhammad Hassan. And he says, yes, Muhammad Hassan wrote a book on music. That's I was using all of this reference to make this point. So Muhammad Hassan my brother wrote a book on music, and he destroyed this book because he did not wanted this book to reach to people who are na'ahl, those who are not, doesn't have that, caliber, capacity, because they will misuse this book. It is through this music how a soul can reach all. Because I said, music have the element of latafat, have that subtleness in it that makes the nafs move. That's why, it is haram. The scholars, the ulama have said that because it kind of pushes the nafs. If somebody is studying music, they will know that the modern music that we have, there are restrictions in it. There are certain notes that is not allowed to use. There are certain notes that are only used, that the nafs should go towards, towards negativity, towards materialism, towards this, towards that. Apart from that, even the lyrics, if you look at it, are so, evil. Like, for example, you have the lyrics such as, and these, when you listen to it, they are very catchy, and you repeat it, and it's like doing zikr. Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Yeah. So you repeat that, instead of Subhanallah, it is Subhana Shaitan. Yeah. That's what it is, right? It just gets into your blood, and you're listening and you're reciting, you don't know what you're doing. But in reality, you're coming closer and moving away from Allah. Like, for example, I shouldn't be taking the name, but from the Mimbar, very famous, who also recited when Biden was inaugurated. I don't know what will happen this year. Lady Gaga, she says, I love Judas. Where she says, who is Judas? The one who, sacrificed, the one who arrested and took Isa alayhi salam on their cross, according to her belief. Now she comes and says, I love Judas. And she's famous. And what is this? And our youth, our whoever, they are listening. Leave aside our youth, people who are Christian people, they don't know what they are listening. And they are moved then by it, right? So music have that element, and that's why it's very hard to differentiate between halal and haram. And the ulama, in order to, as an ihtiyat, they completely shun and they say it's haram, and that and the other. So Allama Tawatabai's brother have that. So poetry have that element. So it's very important, the expression of it, the meaning of it. It's a very deeper meaning. Imam Khomeini, man bekhalillah bi'aydus giraftar shuda. He says that I've been imprisoned by the mole on the lip of my beloved. वो तिल जो है मेरे होठ, महबूब के होठों पर, उस वजह से मैं जो है गिरफ्तार हो गया हूँ उसके इश्क में. Obviously, Imam Khomeini is there's a deeper meaning of what that mole means, what that lab means. As mimbar o masjid bizar shudam. मैं बेजार हो गया हूँ ये मस्जिद और मिंबरों से. इमाम खुमैनी कह रहे हैं. तो क्या, what I mean? These are all, I'm sick and tired of masjid and pulpits, right? There's a deeper meaning behind it. So Hafiz have very beautiful poetry. Rumi have very beautiful poetry, right? You have to really understand and interpret, and many other Saadi and this and that, and appreciate and try to understand what meaning they are trying to relay. In any case, so therefore, Allama Tabatabai, had Saadat Parwar, right? He has a book called Furuq-e-Shahadat. That's where we started discussion of all of this. I'm so sorry, although tonight's topic, which I have, is something else. Last night, Brother Wali was telling me, Maulana, introduction to ho gaya hai, aaj se shuru ho gaya. I said, don't worry, Maulana knows how to. So, abhi introduction abhi shuru hi nahi hua hai. Salawat bhi Muhammad. So therefore, Aghai Saadat Parwar has this book. Aghai Saadat Parwar, when we were studying, I had a friend who was a physician, who was a doctor. He would attend to him, when he was getting old and when he used to get ill. Adam mutakhalliq, Agha Saadat Parwar was an akhlaqi person. He would teach that's akhlaq and irfan. His friend had a friend, and he would visit him as a physician, and he would ask him to sleep, more, at least 6 hours. He said, I cannot, because I hear these walls and birds doing zikrullah. They are doing tasbih. So how it is possible when somebody is doing tasbih, then one can sleep? Imagine somebody, you're about to sleep, somebody's reciting Quran, or, it's very difficult. So Agha Saadat Parwar would hear that, because yusabbihu lillahi ma fis samawati wal ard, whatsoever in the heaven and earth. The Quran says doing tasbih of Allah. La yafqahuna biha. But you don't understand that they are doing tasbih. You don't understand they are doing tasbih. Now this is in relation to, alhamdulillah, this also came up, whatever comes, there's a relationship, it comes, it's Allah. I'm doing nothing, I'm just, transferring what's coming, I have of no value, right? So here, tasbih, whatever is in the heaven and doing tasbih, and I cannot listen, that's why I cannot sleep. And that's what Agha Saadat Parwar is saying. Now I will connect this to Imam Husayn's horse, about this tasbih, whatsoever in the heaven and earth, in a moment. So Agha Saadat Parwar in Furugh Shahadat, he has, this is Asrar Maqtal Imam Husayn, it's in Farsi. Try to get this book, and there's some brothers who are working on the translation of this book. It looks at the deeper meaning or the secret meanings in the Maqtal of Imam Husayn. For example, this hadith is not there, but we can understand. Hazrat Zainab Salamullah alayha, she said, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. When Ibn Ziyad asked her in Kufa after she was arrested, she's prisoner, right? And the brother had been killed, the children have been killed, Aun and Muhammad. And they ask, how did you see Karbala? In order to tease, in order to belittle Hazrat Zainab. Ibn Ziyad, how was Karbala? What we did, we won, we killed your brother, And she says, I saw nothing but beauty. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. What is this Jamal? What is this beauty that she is talking about? Is it killing of the brother beautiful? Is it killing of their children beautiful? Yeah, one interpretation, one may say that because they have sacrificed their life for Allah, it's very beautiful. But there's something much deeper. It is the land of Karbala which can only become the mazruf, the container, the loci, the place of the manifestation, the reflection of the Asma Ilahi, the way that no other land have reflected. Not even Kaaba. It is that Karbala. We don't know what Karbala is. Very valuable. For example, the value of this glass is because how much water in it. That's the value. That's the value of glass. So the land of Karbala have reflected the Asma Ilahi the most. Because, as Amirul Mu'mineen says in Najul Balagha, Tajalli bi-dhatihi bi-dhatihi, in Dua Sabah as well, Allah have done tajalli. The creation is nothing but the manifestation and reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole creation is nothing but the reflection of the divine. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La mu'assira fil wujud illa Allah. Allahu nuru samawat wal ard. Right? So just like when you, as there's a poetry in Farsi, it says, when you see yourself in the mirror, that is you and not you. When you see yourself in the mirror, that's you and not you. So the whole creation is Allah but not Allah. That's the reality. So therefore, I don't want to go too much into, hashiye in the margin. So the land of Karbala is a place the most beautiful, because sixth Imam says, La yawma ka yawma ka Abu Abdullah. There is no day like the day of Abu Abdullah Husayn. That land, according to the sixth Imam, once again in the book of Sadat Parwarin Asrar, in Furugh Shahadat, that's why I mentioned that book as a reference, in which there is a hadith in the end chapters where it's talking about the secret of the land of Karbala. Sixth Imam says that the Rasulullah have mentioned, sixth Imam says from the fifth Imam, because fifth Imam was in Karbala, that from his father and Rasulullah, that Husayn, you will go to Karbala. And it's a land where pure souls will be, I'm just making it very quickly, pure souls will be killed. They will be slaughtered and they will be killed in this place. And iron, ahan, loha, iron will become like how fire had become for Ibrahim, for the Ashab of Husayn. Because they will feel no pain of being severed, of being cut, or of being, wounded. They will feel no pain. It will become sweet for them. Now, this doesn't mean, very quickly, this doesn't mean that, it will not be painful. No, it will be very painful. But it will be very sweet. I always use this example. There's a amal Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Quran. Very mujarrab, very powerful amal. That with the whole Quran, you recite Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim on every ayah of the Quran. From Surah Ham to Surah Nas. Puri Quran. Har line pe, every verse, every line, you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Page, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Puri, all Quran. It will take maybe an hour and a half or something. When you start reciting, you reach Baqarah, you don't feel your finger and hand because of how many times. By the end of Quran, your whole hand is numb, right? You'll feel nothing. It's painful. And then after you finish the whole Amal Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Quran, gradually it starts to become, but it is very painful. But whenever you feel the pain, it's very sweet. You have said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You have done an Amal Quran Bismillah ar-Rahman. It's very sweet. It's painful. So for the Ashab, it's not like this. They are not feeling the pain. No. It's very painful. Right? But it is very sweet. So Rasulullah says that the iron will become like the fire, how it has become for Ibrahim garden. And this land is Karbala. And then he goes in explanation of this land. The sixth Imam says, what is Karbala? In order to explain this hadith, he interprets, as we said, we have put hadith next to each other. He says, Karbala, on the day of judgment, everything will speak. Because the day of judgment is the judgment, Yawma Tubla Sarair, the Quran says, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. The earth will speak, everything will speak. What does that mean? That everything will have reached to its sense of ma'rifat, and it will express his ma'rifat on the highest level. In shu'ur insan, shu'ur khilqat, क़यामत के दिन उस हद तक पहुंच जाएगा कि उसकी गुफ्तगू इंसान समझ पाएगा. यानी दर हकीकत शूर इंसान रफ्ते बाला कि मिफहमे कि ज़मीन दारे ची मिगे. यानी इंसान का भी शूर, human beings also will reach to that capacity that able to listen and hear what these are saying. In this world he's unable to. But the amount of, why is that? Why is my intelligence, why my aql, why my intellect is reaching to a point where I could hear walls and يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Why is that happening? Because of yaqeen. जब इंसान का यकीन बाला हो जाता है तो हक़ाइक़ को वो देखने लगता है. जब when we have that certainty in Allah, we'll be able to see what the reality is. Right? And the reality, as the Quran says, once again now linking that to مَا رَأَيْتُ إِلَّا جَمِيلًا أَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. सूरह रहमान. तुम जिधर भी अपना चेहरा घुमाओगे वहां पे वजह इलाही है और कुछ नहीं. Right? Wherever you turn, there's a face of Allah. But we don't see the face of Allah because we don't have yaqeen. As we don't have yaqeen, our aql have not reached to that capacity. But those people who have that yaqeen and their aql have reached to that capacity, they will say, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila." Siwai wajh ilahi, there's nothing but the manifestation and the reflections of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So on the day of judgment, everybody's yaqeen will reach because as the yaqeen start to reach to the maximum capacity from the time of ihzar. When Israel comes, they say, oh, there's no return back now. The yaqeen starts, now I have to die. No matter what that person is. The death have arrived. Yaqeen starts to increase. Increase and increase till the day of judgment. That, هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. When the people will be brought up on the grave and they will be sitting on their grave on the day of judgment. After Barzakh, after Qiyamah is ready, different stages of it, right? There's a very nice article just mentioning in the margin for our youth. It's on eschatology by William Chittick in the book Islamic Spirituality on Qiyamah. And he talks about the different stages of Qiyamah, right? Based on Quran and Hadith, obviously, right? So, that the person will be sitting on the grave, and because this person have slept for a long time, because Qiyamah have happened, the person he died, he was in Barzakh. After in Barzakh, blowing of the trumpet will take place. Israfil phukega, phir se the whole creation will go in hibernation. Then the Israfil will blow the trumpet again. Everybody will come back to life after a long period. Allah will create the stage of the day of judgment. They will completely forget, because after you sleep after a long time, in a long period, you don't know what's happening. Wali Bhai woke me up this afternoon because I didn't sleep last night, jet lag and all that. He woke me up. I was like, Namaz-e-Subh. I said, Fajr. He said, no, not Namaz-e-Subh, Namaz-e-Maghrib. Salawatullah Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because when we sleep, we completely disconnect, right? So the whole creation will forget. And then ayah of the Quran says, oh, هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Qiyamah is happening. This is what the wa'ada of Rahman, the promise of Allah was. And the Mursalun was Sadaq al-Mursalun. And the prophets have spoken the truth that the day of judgment will happen, everybody will come from the grave. This is what's happening, right? So on the day of judgment, people will see and will say that yes. Why? Because yaqeen have come. As yaqeen have come, they will listen to everything. So on the day of judgment, everything will speak. The land of Kaaba will speak, according to the hadith of the sixth Imam in Furuq al-Shahadat, that I am the best of land. I am the best of land. Why? Because everybody comes to my, to me, to do the tawaf of me. The house of Allah is on this land, and I'm the best of land. Then a voice will echo on the day of judgment from Allah. And he says, be careful, hold your horses, stop it, before I punish you with azab. Your value, sixth Imam, your value in comparison to the land of Karbala is like putting a needle in the ocean, and how much of water a needle can get, that is your value in comparison to Karbala. If it wasn't for Karbala, you will be valueless. It is because of Karbala, the sacrifice of Husayn, that the Hajj have remained, that Islam have remained, the Quran have remained, the Makkah have remained. Abdullah ibn Zubayr built a room on top of Karbala, on top of Makkah, because he was in charge, Abdullah ibn Zubayr. ये कमरा बना लिया काबे के ऊपर, वहां पे सोता था. Is this how what he was doing? Right? And it's the sacrifice. When they came to get Abdullah ibn Zubayr, they torched Karbala, Kaaba. जो आग लगा दी काबे को यजीद के फौजियों ने. ये वैल्यू थी उन लोग के नजदीक. That's why, the great poet Farazdaq, when Imam Zainul Abidin comes in Hajj, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, it's crowded, but the crowd opens. And Imam goes very in a peaceful manner, without any, difficulty, and touches Hajar Aswad. And the Khalifa says, "Who's this?" And he recites the poetry. He is the child of Makkah or Mina. He is the child of Safa or Marwa. That's Imam Zainul Abidin. So that is Karbala, and today is the arrival of Husayn in Karbala. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, Wali is another introduction to introduction ho gaya aaj. So that is Karbala. It's very valuable to us. It's very important for us to visit. That's why there is so much of recommendation of visiting Karbala. See, it's valuable on, it depends on the level of the capacity of the understanding of us. For me, Imam Husayn is there, I should go there, because of Imam Husayn. Yes, Imam Husayn is there, right? Imam Husayn have made that Karbala more valuable by being in there. So somehow that visitation of that piece of land, I will not go if Imam Husayn wasn't there, right? So therefore there's a value of zaman and makan. There's value of every time and space. Now we are going towards that introduction of Arafa, right? But I missed a point that we were saying that about the horse of Imam Husayn alayhi salam and use tasbih of the creation. See, everything is doing tasbih. The horse of Imam Husayn did not move. 1, 2, 3, 7. And then, why? Because the horse is doing tasbih of Allah. Is fulfilling what Allah wants. Is connecting to that earth, to that land. Is speaking, is saying something. The Waliullah understands that, right? So therefore, everything that is in the creation have life, is valuable. But unfortunately, because of the time, the postmodern period, things have changed. Our curriculums have changed. Our outlook of things have changed. And we use everything as a commodity. As there's no relationship of we as who are the Khalifatullah potentially with the creation. The relationship of ours with this creation have been blocked because of materialism. We see things from the material aspect, from utilitarian aspect, how much it will benefit me, what it will give me. But rather looking at things as they are doing tasbih of Allah, they are creation of Allah, and there is a relationship with that, right? But we base everything on what's the taste of it, how much it is, its value of it, based on our nafs, based on our pleasure. But a Waliullah doesn't look at creation that way. As he doesn't look at creation that way, because Aynama tuwallu fasamma wajhullah, he has a very different relationship with it, with animals, with plants. Speak to the plants when you water them. Look how they give flower. They are alive, right? So anyway, I don't want to speak, there were a lot of stories from Hassan Zadeh Amali and many, but I'm not going to speak about that. So here, that horse was speaking, was doing that tasbih, right? And Husayn understood. The land spoke to Husayn, you know. Anyway, so here, as we are saying, there's a value of zaman and makan, of time and space. So our topic is actually, we are trying to figure out the personality of Imam Husayn alayhi salam through Dua Arafa. That's our topic, and we, inshallah, we'll be discussing that. And it's dua from Dua Arafa. So therefore, this dua was recited by Imam Husayn alayhi salam few days before Arafa, because he changed the Hajj to Umrah, and he went for Karbala, and today is the arrival in Karbala. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. How much time I have, brother? Wali, we just started. 10-15 minutes, we have to do Masail as well. So very briefly about the day of Arafah. Day of Arafah is a very powerful day. It's a day in which sacrifice takes place. Sacrifice of what? First is the sacrifice of the nafs. Because Hujjaj, Wali Bhai have gone there just now, and many of our family members have gone for Hajj. Hujjaj, they'll go outside Makkah, in the wilderness, in the land of Arafah. And what do they do there? They do astaghfar, they do tawbah. All of their sins is forgiven, and they become pure. All of the sins, even those who are nasibi, even those who are nasibi, who nasibis are, their sins are also forgiven. But if they stay, and usually which they do, in their kufr, in their nasibiyat, it all comes back, right? If they stay the same way. And many are like, but because the day of Arafah is so valuable, and the land of Arafah is so important, that Allah forgives sins of everyone. Because Allah has said, the riwayat points out to, that those who are not forgiven in the month of Ramadan, for them is the Arafah. What does this mean? That means that the whole month of Ramadan is khulasa, is been, contained in those few hours of Arafah. That's the value of Arafah. That those who are not forgiven in the month of Ramadan, for them is the day of Arafah. That means that whole month I have done astaghfar, night of Qadr, so on and so forth. I haven't been forgiven, for example. Then the hope for this person is Arafah. So those few hours is like the whole month of Ramadan. It's that much valuable, that much powerful. Because, a person is purified, is forgiven, his killing of the nafs takes place. The ego is shattered, the ego is killed, and one becomes pure. And one, when becomes pure, is allowed to enter the house of the haram, the house of Allah, because he has been purified. And the distance between Arafah and the house of Allah, as he has sacrificed himself, he manifests this sacrifice of the nafs with a physical manifestation of killing an animal. He slaughters or she slaughters an animal, and then after that goes to Makkah. And there's hitting of the big shaitan. The first is the hitting of the big shaitan, and then they come back. So that's what happens, right? Killing of the nafs, very symbolic. Every actions that we have in Islam have a very powerful, deep meaning. Har cheez, everything that we have, have a very powerful, deep meaning, right? Why do we give salams after finishing our prayers? Abhi to salam kiya tha, haath milaya tha, phir se namaz ke baad kyun? Because as-salat mirajul mu'min, our soul have traveled, gone, and we come back. So when we come back, we say, oh, assalamu alaikum, how are you? Everything that we do. Agha Jawadi says, why we do like this in our dua? When we do, and then after that dua, we wipe our face. We wipe our face and our body. Agha Jawadi says, the angels, they will come and they will take dua from your hand. When they will take dua from your hand, it has touched your body. As it has touched your body, then you wipe that over your body. That is the meaning behind. These are not khurafat, these are not superstitions. There are deep meaning behind it, right? So Here, the day of Arafah, all of that is very symbolic. Killing of the nafs, of our nafs, purification, killing of an animal, that is a sacrifice. And then after that sacrifice, Allah gives Eid. Because our nafs have returned back to the purity. Oud, that's what Eid means, returning back. The month of Ramadan, we fasted. Our nafs have gone back to the purity, Eid is given. So Eid is always given after a sacrifice, after cutting something. And as a matter of fact, very briefly in the margin, some of the postmodern psychological, cultural things that we have, they are also have a very traditional, metaphysical basis to it. After cutting cake, celebration is a cutting. These modern things that are there, there's a very, they use these psychological things. Wearing of something on the head, it's a tradition, it's a sunnah. Not only in Islam, in Christianity, in Judaism, in Hinduism, in all religions have some aspect of. Now we have baseball caps. Wearing hat in in a period, it was for a person who was respectful. Whenever you go outside, you wear a coat, you'll wear a sherwani, you'll have that Rumi topi, or you'll wear a suit, you'll have a hat, right? So this is embedded in the fitra, in the nature of man. There's a relationship with the physical action and our soul. That Sunanun Nabi have a relationship, which we'll discuss that later on perhaps, right? So therefore, after cutting, after sacrifice, the celebration is there, the Eid is there. So that is the day of Arafah. That it is killing of that nafs. When that nafs is killed, then that clarity comes, that vision comes, that understanding comes, right? So the day of Arafah is that, the Dua Arafah, if you look at it, that's what is in there. So Imam Husayn alayhi salam on the Dua Arafah have brought out the inner secrets of Tawheed, have brought out that clarity that how Allah is in that dua. And while doing so, he is also showing who Husayn is. Because just before he left in Medina, he said, Ya ayyuhan nas lima khalaqa khalqallah. O people, which we'll talk about this khutbah later on as well, but in the conclusion of the khutbah is that somebody stood up and asked, what is ma'rifat of Allah Azza wa Jal? Then the Imam said, ma'rifat of Allah is the ma'rifat of the Imam of the time. If we have the ma'rifat of the Imam of the time, that is ma'rifat of Allah. So Husayn on the day of Arafah is introducing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is bringing that secrets of Tawheed and giving to us, and through which we understand that Tawheed, and through which we understand Husayn. And this Husayn on the 2nd arrived in Karbala, and it wasn't easy. And Husayn says, this is where we're going to camp, this is where we stop, put the tents here. And they start examining the land of Karbala. And when Husayn wasn't moving, Zainab came and asked, brother, what's the matter? We should be heading towards Kufa. And Husayn says, my horse is not moving forward. Why? Because they say this is Karbala. Tears came into the eyes of Zainab. And in the poetry you recited just now, Husayn bought the land of Karbala, and he met the people there, and he said that, when we die in this land, because they knew, bury us, don't leave our bodies on the ground. And I'm reminded on the day of Ashura, on the 11th day, where people were coming and burying the bodies, but there was only one body left on the ground, and that was the body of Husayn. Then Zainab says that, is there anyone to claim the body of the son of Fatima? Right? This is Husayn, the highest level of sacrifice. The highest level of sacrifice is by Abu Abdul. That's why he is Sayyid al-Shuhada. हर चीज में जो है वो सैयद है हुसैन. इतने ज़्यादा ईसार किया है اپنی جان کا، اپنی زندگی کا، اپنی مال کا، اپنی اولاد کا، کہ کوئی شخص اس زمین پر اس طرح سے ایثار نہیں کیا جس طرح سے حسین نے ایثار کیا ہے، جس طرح سے حسین نے قربانی دی ہے کوئی شخص نے اس طرح سے قربانی نہیں دی ہے، اپنی اولاد کی، اپنے مال کی، اپنی جان کی، اپنے بہن بھائیوں کی قربانی حسین نے دی ہے۔ اسی لیے علامہ مصباح یزدی فرماتے ہیں کہ حسین کا واسطہ دو اور حسین کے واسطے سے تمہیں سب کچھ ملے گا، کیونکہ اللہ کہے گا کہ حسین نے میرے لیے سب کچھ قربان کیا ہے۔ اور جب تم حسین کو لے کے آ رہے ہو، جب حسین کا واسطہ دے رہے ہو، جب حسین مجھ سے کہے گا میں سب کچھ عطا کروں گا، کیونکہ حسین نے اس طرح سے اپنی جان کو قربان کی ہے۔ حتیٰ جس قسم سے تدفین، جس قسم سے ان کے لاشوں کو پامال کیا گیا ہے، وہ ہائٹ آف سیکریفائس، وہ ہائٹ آف ایثار ہم نے نہیں دیکھا ہے۔ زینب کی آنکھوں میں آنسو آ جاتے ہیں اور کہتے ہیں بھیا جب زمین خرید رہے ہو تو اپنے بیٹے علی اکبر کی بھی زمین خرید، بھیا جب علی اکبر بازو ہوگی تمہارے سینے پہ اصغر ہوگا۔ حسین نے قیام کیا، حکم دیا کہ خیمے لگا دیا جائے۔ کیا شان اور شوکت کے ساتھ یہ قافلہ کربلا پہنچا ہے، جوانان بنی ہاشم ہے، خیمے لگا رہے ہیں، ابو الفضل عباس ہے، حافظ ہے، چادر زینب سلام اللہ علیہا اور چادر اہل بیت علیہ السلام کا خیمے لگا دیے گئے۔ اور پھر اس کے بعد یہاں پہ وہ روایت مجھے وہ یاد آ رہی ہے، جس دن شب عاشور حسین علیہ السلام کربلا کے میدان میں جاتے ہیں اور بریر پیچھے پیچھے چلے جاتے ہیں، اور کہتے ہیں کہ جب پیچھے پیچھے بریر جانے لگے تو حسین پلٹ کر دیکھتے ہیں کہ بریر آ رہے ہیں۔ پھر حسین نے اس کربلا کے میدان میں ایک ایک شہداء کی زمین بتلائی کہ وہ کس جگہ پر شہید ہوئیں گے۔ پھر اس کے بعد بریر نے کہا کہ میں یہ گریے کی آواز سن رہا ہوں، جس دن سے ہم کربلا میں آئے ہیں رات کو مجھے ایک خاتون کی گریے کی آواز آ رہی ہے، کوئی خاتون رو رہی ہے۔ یہاں پہ حسین کہتے ہیں تجھے پتا ہے یہ کون ہے؟ یہ زہرا ہے جو میرے ساتھ نکلی ہے مدینہ سے، اور اب وہ کربلا میں ہے۔ اسی وجہ سے آج کی رات سے فاطمہ کے گریے کی آواز کربلا سے بلند ہوتی ہے، روز رات وہ آواز آتی ہے۔ تمام اصحاب جن میں وہ معرفت ہے اس گریے کی آواز کو سن رہے ہیں۔ قیام کربلا میں پہنچ چکا ہے، یہ وہی زمین ہے جس پہ شہداء کا خون بہنے والا ہے۔ اور پھر وہ دن بھی آ گیا، 7ویں کا دن، جب اس کربلا کے زمین پر حکم دیا گیا کہ اس قیام کو جو فرات کے نزدیک ہے، جو نہر کے نزدیک ہے، اسے ہٹایا جائے۔ اور زینب جلال میں آئی، لیکن حکم تھا امام حسین علیہ السلام، ابو الفضل عباس جلال میں آئے، لیکن حکم تھا کہ قیام کو جو ہے دور لے جایا جائے، اس فرات سے قیام کو دور لے جایا گیا اس کربلا میں۔ اور پھر اس کے بعد ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ اسی زمین پر ایسے ایسے شہداء، ایسے ایسے خون اس زمین پر ہے کہ ایک مرثیہ ایک عرب نے پڑھا ہے کہ اے کربلا کہ اس زمین پر جو ہے تمہارے شہداء کے خون ہے، کیا تمہاری سعادت ہے؟ یہ زمین تکیہ گاہ ہے، تکیہ ہے میرے بھائی زینب کے اس کے بیان سے یہ زمین تکیہ گاہ ہے، یہ تکیہ ہے، یہ تکیہ گاہ ہے میرے بھائی ابو الفضل عباس کی۔ اللہ لعنت اللہ علی قوم الظالمین سیعلم الذین ظلموا منقلبون ماتم حسین۔